12th of December 1830, Aoife. It was dinner time, and Mummy had put Daddy's dinner on the table. It was his favourite, chicken with mashed potatoes and gravy. Daddy hated vegetables. They all ate in silence, Mummy staring at Daddy's empty chair, her blue eyes upside down and her lips drooping towards Dad. Aoife and her little brother Aubrey just stared at each other. Aubrey pulled faces trying to make Aoife laugh. He was the cutest 3.5-year-old that Aoife knew. His curly strawberry blonde hair made him look like an angel, but he wasn't. Anyways, Aoife thought, this wasn't a time for laughing, so she kept her straight face. When Aubrey struggled to cut his food, Aoife leaned across the table and tried her best to help him, but she knocked his chicken onto the table and dripping onto the floor was the gravy.
Aubrey laughed so hard that his food catapulted from his mouth across the table into Aoife's face. Yuck! Aoife screamed, and then quickly, shh, Aubrey. By this time, Mummy had pulled herself out of her trance. Looking at the mess, Mummy stood up in complete silence,
throwing Aoife her crossest look as she headed towards the kitchen. When she returned, she stretched her arm towards Aoife, handed her a damp cloth, and said, "Clean it up, please." At that same moment, Mummy's phone rang, and in less time than it took for Aoife to wipe the table, Mummy said, "Fine, your dinner's in the dog," and the room fell silent again, except for the echoing sound of Mummy's clicking heels as she marched over to the table, scooping up the plates. The clattering of plates accompanied the clicking heels, and the loading of the dishwasher
provided a separate beat. As Aoife walked to the sink with the cloth, she knew fine didn't mean fine when Mummy said it like that, and then she became confused because they didn't even have a dog. 12th of December 2003, Aoife. Mummy pulled Aoife's fairy duvet up over Aoife's shoulders, kissed her goodnight and said, "It's too late for a bedtime story tonight, Pumpkin." "Okay," Aoife replied, and smiling she wrapped her small arms round her Mummy's neck, inhaling her scent, which to Aoife's mother
like Christmas, Easter and birthdays, and all of her favourite memories all at once. Sometimes Aoife could hear Mummy cry at night and wondered what it was that she had done, promising herself that when she woke in the morning she would be especially good, and maybe Mummy's eyes would sparkle again. Maybe Mummy would be happy in her heart again. Mummy did try to smile sometimes, but only managed to raise one corner of her lip,
and her eyes didn't smile at all. 12th of December 2123, Aoife. It was nearly Christmas, but not in 34 Burgundy Road. The house was bare of decoration, and on the 12th of December, this tree still wasn't up. Aoife sat on her bed. She had put on her favourite reindeer pyjamas inside out,
so the labels and scenes didn't scratch. She propped her chin up with her knees so that the extra weight from the sadness in her head wouldn't make it fall off. If it did, then she wouldn't be able to look up through her window and say goodnight to the moon and the stars. She wouldn't be able to look out for Father Christmas and his reindeer and make a wish. She gasped, raising her small hand to her mouth. Her long auburn hair hung shrouding her face,
creating a space in which she could hide away, while she further contemplated the downside of losing her head. Through her closed door she could hear muffled, raised voices. Mum and Dad were being cross again. She should be asleep. It was way past her bedtime, and Daddy had just got home. Aoife parted her auburn hair like a pair of curtains and looked up to her windowsill. The clock said 9:23. She'd been in bed since 8. When Aoife had asked Mummy earlier where Daddy was, Mummy had sat her down and hugged her so close that Aoife could hear the ba-boom, ba-boom of her heartbeat as Mummy explained. Daddy has had a promotion, and at this time of year it's very busy at work. Aoife nodded, even though she didn't understand what a promotion was. So Mummy continued. He is working very hard on a big account, so sometimes Daddy has to be at work late.
Sometimes he has to travel on a plane. Aoife concentrated very hard, but she didn't know what a promotion was or how big account it had to be. Opening her dictionary, she searched, but promotion was not in the book. She knew what count was, so didn't need to check. She then wondered if he had to do a test like she had to do sometimes in Miss Leslie's numeracy class. She was sure Daddy knew how to count, as they had played hide-and-seek lots of times.
And he had counted all the way to 50 once when she had told him she was going to hide behind the sofa. He had also helped her with her times table once, and he was good at that too. She sighed and wished she was just a bit cleverer so that she could help him. She just needed to be 7 years old, because if she was 7, she was sure she would understand, but her birthday was ages away in June. Eva decided not to ask Mummy about it again, as she still remembered how Mummy's eyes were shiny like glass last time, and she had swallowed down the sadness, like Aoife had done sometimes when Tess had called her names.
Aoife tried hard not to listen to the muffled voices, and as she started to say her 2 times table, the door opened. "Daddy," she asked, flicking her auburn hair back. "Aubrey," she whispered, "what are you doing here again?" Aubrey remained silent as he walked towards her, clutching Spark, his tatty green dragon which he had had since birth. As the door shut behind him, she heard her mum shout, "You don't understand. I just can't find the Christmas spirit." Aubrey climbed into Aoife's bed and she tucked him and Spark under her duvet. Before slipping into slumber, she smiled. She had made a plan.
13th of December, 6:45, Aoife. The morning started like every other morning. Aoife woke to the whispering of her name by Mummy and the biggest smile from Aubrey, who was perched on Mummy's hip, clutching Spark tightly in his left hand. As was the same most mornings, Aoife also woke wondering how Aubrey had managed to get out of her bed without her knowing. However, unlike any other morning, Aoife jumped out of bed in a rush to start the day. Mummy didn't ask her to shower or brush her teeth.
She didn't even have to force her into her red scratchy uniform with the labels unpicked, because Aoife had a very important mission today. But first, she needed to get to school. 13th of December, 07:45. Jen. As Jen stood at the sink watching Aoife, she was grateful that the morning's routine was running so well. She had a deadline to submit her book draft. It was already 1 week overdue.